Chef.
Hey, Chef.
I won't even lead on to it. Do you know what we're going to talk about today?
It better be the bear. I've been waiting for this one.
It is, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
And can we talk about?
Why didn't you bring ketchup?
What kind of asshole is gonna put ketchup on a hot dog?
A child, Richie.
Child asshole.
Can we finally talk about the bear?
We can, but first we have to explain where we are.
Okay, yeah. This is a very special episode.
It's a summary episode. We're in person.
Yes,
We're
we
looking
are.
face to face.
We're staring at each other's sweaty foreheads.
It is very humid outside. We figured for the summer, we should do like a summary episode.
Outside.
And just before we recorded, it started raining, but it subsided. But now it's just summer, humid, unbearable.
I was going to say, I was hoping it would like cut the heat, but I think it's made the humidity worse.
We just put more water in the air.
It makes us feel like we're in the kitchen. This
It
is
does.
perfect.
I know. We
set the scene.
If I could just hear like the sound of like burners going on, then I feel like I'm in the kitchen. I just need pots and pans in the background.
I was going to say you need metal pots and pans and people cursing and timers going off and all the anxiety that comes with the kitchen, which is from this show. So I'm just going to start off by saying that I was obsessed with this show when it first came out and said, we need to do the bear.
Yeah.
And you said, yeah, I need to hold on that because I've heard nothing but anxiety-inducing nightmares
and
from the show.
Since, by the way, and I think, not to jump across too far, but what's funny about it is I think the consensus I've heard from everybody, including myself, is season 1 is hard to get through because of that anxiety.
Yes.
And then season 2 isn't as bad as season 1, but there's still a little bit of anxiety too. And there's definitely episodes, which we'll talk about, that are like, Jesus Christ, like that is, I need to double my Xanax dosage.
Agreed, 100%.
But season 1 in of itself, like almost, I feel like every episode, and there were like, 8 episodes, were like wall-to-wall anxiety.
And so like when I watch the show, first of all, I watch the show because of Jeremy Allen White. I love him.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Shameless fan. Give me Lip Gallagher all fucking day, every day. But so watching this, I was like, okay, restaurant. And for those of you that don't know, I've spent almost 17 years working in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
And was at the same location for 16 and a half years. Worked in every iteration of a restaurant in the hospitality industry you can think of.
Yeah.
Front of house, back of house, management, training, like absolutely everything. This show is so freakishly accurate. And did you work in the restaurant industry?
I was going to say the closest I came was, I grew up in New York in Staten Island.
Staten Island.
The Staten Island Yankees, which don't exist anymore now.
Oh.
They even the Yankees were like, yeah, let's get rid of it. During the summers, I would work at the concession stands, and I sort of moved up the ranks a few times. And so every year I would do it. There was one year, the closest I ever came was I worked the grill, doing like the hamburgers, hot dogs, all that stuff.
Intense, actually.
Yeah,
that's like a very sweaty position.
It was, and the thing is, like, I got to wear, I had my blues on, right?
Oh yeah.
And then I got in trouble from this guy because what I would do is, and I was young and stupid, is I'd throw Devil's Advocate. They were like frozen patties, like the big box of like red tops kind of things, and I would get in trouble because we had this big flame broil grill. And I'd put the patties, stack them like up and down because it was once the game started, it was go. Like it never stopped until like the 8th inning. And what I would do is I'd flip the burgers, and then once they started getting that like little like the grease on top, I'd like tap them and like splash it, and like everything would get that like flame like boosh. It was almost like a show. Like I could have been
like hibachi, but
exactly,
burger style.
So
Got it.
But also I felt like it gave it that like flame flavor.
Taste.
Yeah. And they're like, no, you're making them dry. And it's reality. I was like, then they're already dry. They're frozen.
They're frozen.
Like patties, So,
I get that.
But that was the closest I ever came.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, my whole life has been the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
So from the jump, like watching the first episode, I was like, oh, this is going to be fucking good. And I will tell you why.
Yeah.
He was drinking his water out of a quart container.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds so stupid, But doing the research from this, I now know why everything is so accurate.
Yeah.
The guy that plays Fack, Maddie Matheson, is a professional chef.
Yes. Yeah.
And Courtney Storer is the showrunner's sister.
Yeah.
She is also a professional chef.
Yeah.
And they were both like the technical advisors on the show.
Yeah.
Courtney made all of the food for the show. Every single piece of food in this show is actual food. It is not Crisco. It is not all the like tricks and tips. This is all real food.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I saw an interview where Ao and Jeremy Allen White were saying like, we got in trouble so much for eating food on set because they were like, I get it. It looks and smells good and it's hot, but you cannot eat it because now she's got to go make more because it's supposed to have come out not eaten.
Yeah.
But it was, Jeremy Allen White said that they all told Maddie Matheson and Courtney the minute that something looks phony, like it wouldn't happen in the kitchen, yell cut.
Huh.
And so what's the showrunner's name? Something Storer.
Christopher Storer.
Christopher Storer.
Yeah.
He like gave them free reign to yell cut at any point in time if it looked disingenuous, if it did not look
like his sister or Fack or any of the
they
people.
Could say cut. That would never happen in a kitchen.
Yeah.
But isn't that funny? Because Carmi's got those beautiful locks of love just flowing. His hair would be in every goddamn sandwich.
Well, I also found, and this is the bad thing. So we were supposed to do this episode. We were supposed to record this episode earlier, and then again schedules. But then between then and now, I listened to our sister podcast In Sync. Did an entire episode on The Bear, which I said this to them directly, by the way, too. And obviously, like, I'm a producer on it and everything. But I will say, I told them, I was like, I think that was your best episode you guys ever did.
That's my favorite episode so far.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. And so I'm almost angry at myself because I'm like, there's so many facts that I learned from that podcast now that if you listen to both of our podcasts, you're just like, just stop repeating the same stuff. But I'll credit them. So what I didn't know is that, which, by the way, I'll also give them credit because when we ran the Emmy nominations, I couldn't say Ao's name, Ao Adbiri, which thank you, Aviv, for teaching me how to say that. But
did I say it right in the Emmy one?
You did. I didn't. I kept saying Io or I was like, anyway. But her and Jeremy Allen White both were sent to culinary school for like a week, and I don't know if she did 2 weeks, and then I don't know if Ao did as well, but I know Jeremy staged at a restaurant as well. Yes,
in I have the name of it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they took a 2-week crash course at the Institute of Culinary Education.
Yeah.
But Pacioli, I think it's called. It's in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And he actually made dishes. Like if you were eating there, he was making the dishes for you.
It's funny too because before the show came out and after he did Shameless, can you imagine being in the restaurant and be like, oh my God, I think that's the guy from Shameless. Oh my God, the poor guy, he can't
get another job after Shameless. Oh God, Fiona left and now the show's in the shitter.
I'm surprised we didn't on what is that, like one of those like gossip sites or whatever, see like Jeremy Allen White, like, down on his luck.
Hack it. Yeah. Oh God, I wouldn't be able to contain myself.
Yeah.
But I think that, like a lot of these facts have come out too since the second season ended. Yeah. But just to preface for people that have not seen this, if you have not seen it and you worked in the restaurant industry, I will say straight up, it is a trigger warning because I'm not trying to be facetious or dramatic or hyperbolic in any way.
Yeah.
It is triggering to the point where I've never had a show. Truly, I think there's one movie that I saw that there was a rape scene that I was like, okay, this is not
too real, too fake.
This is too real. I can't. This is too much for me. I can't watch this. This show was probably the first time that I was like, I have to step away.
Yeah.
Usually, I'm the one telling my fiance, no, one more.
Yeah.
I was like, we can't watch any more tonight. Yeah. I have awful fucking anxiety now. Yeah. I'm in a dark place, and also at the same time, I fucking love it. Like I miss that feeling.
It is an excitement to it, right?
Oh my God. So much excitement and also so like rewarding at the end. There's at the end of it, it's like you just went to war with these people.
Yeah.
And you come out of it and I guess jumping ahead out of excitement, but I wish it's raining by the way now, guys.
I was going to say.
We are covered, but it is raining. The sorry sign language that they do to each other on the line. I wish I had that because one of my closest friends is a boss that I worked with at a restaurant and I was the manager under her.
Yeah.
And she owned the restaurant. And I wish that we had that, because in the heat of the moment, you can't go out and curse the customers.
Yeah.
Shit's going down. The dishwasher's broken.
Yeah.
Ticket times are abysmal. Like, you're losing your mind. You're going to lose it on the first person that you can. And it's always each other. And then afterwards, you have to like have a meeting in the office, usually it was at a bar.
Yeah.
And be like, let me get you a drink. That was my bad. And it was like, yeah, man, no worries. That was a shitty night.
Yeah.
I wish that I had the sign language I'm sorry to do over the line.
I was going to, I feel like this show does two things. It's like, here is a good representation or an accurate representation of what it's actually like. Plus, here's like the, how like we're, which as a society, or at least part of our society, is like sort of self-reflective and like trying to become better people.
Yes.
I always think about you, like there's been on this podcast where you're just like we mentioned suicide, and you're like, I think you're supposed to say this now, or like the proper, we've reflected, we learn from growing and stuff. And I feel like this show especially is like, this is a representative of what the industry's like. But like the whole like rubbing their like sign language thing is sort of like, this is how we should be a little bit. Or maybe there are people out there like that.
I think there is, and I've just never worked in a restaurant of that caliber, which I wish that I will tell you, that second season where our girl from Parenthood comes back. Yeah. She's one of the daughters on Parenthood, but she's like the main, the girl in the kitchen, like calling the orders out when Richie's working at that restaurant.
Oh.
With Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
I forget the actress's name, but she plays Hattie in Parenthood.
Yeah. Okay. I got to look this up. I didn't. She looked familiar, but I didn't know who she was.
Yeah, she plays Hattie in Parenthood, which is your fever dream show that you're not really sure if you ever watched, or maybe you did or didn't. But that scene, that whole restaurant, I will tell you right now, made me be like, I want that. Like, I miss that. That is, my whole life is hospitality. I love hospitality. I love taking care of people, making sure they have good experiences. Yeah. That is my dream job. How do I find it? How do I get there? I want it.
It's really funny. So I will say,
other than podcasting, let me throw that out there.
Which, by the way, again, this is our summer episode.
I love this.
It is
it's
now
so romantic. It's raining.
I don't know how the audio is going to be, but I will say it is. We're getting a little like summer storm, which is fun.
It feels nice.
So if you're listening in your car,
this is ASMR.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we could just stop talking and let everyone hear the rain. But I will say, I had the same exact reaction to it, which was, even as with podcasting and like what we're doing here at Gotham West Studios, I was like, I've tried to articulate it and like what we're trying to do, and I'm like, I want us to be that, like, not McDonald's, not just shove the food out the door, like take pride in that. And we'll get to Forks. We have to step back, but we never do this in the show, or we tend to always forget to do it, but we have to take a step back and explain what the show is, which I'll let you do, because season one is like
season one is the story of, and I will say that this probably hit home for Tom and I both, coming from Italian families. Yeah. Where there's a chaos that is involved in that kind of lifestyle that, like, I don't think a lot of people understand.
Yeah. Without skipping ahead, I was going to say.
Without skipping ahead to the episode that, like, truly, honestly, I was like, I've never seen my family depicted on television before. Yeah. How lovely. There is a chaos that comes from that. And then that layered chaos within the fact that there's this family restaurant. It's called The Beef in Chicago. And it's in a family restaurant that's run by Carmine's brother, played by Jeremy Allen White. His brother Michael, played by Michael Bernthal. Essentially kind of runs this business into the ground. Yeah. Ends up dying by suicide, and you find out that he was really running the business into the ground. You don't really know that until Carmi comes home and has to help pull the restaurant out of the gutter. Now, to preface that, in this time, Carmi's the baby. Yeah. He has gone off to become a chef and eventually a Michelin star, 3 Michelin star rated chef. Yeah. Worked in the best restaurants in the world. Very famous amongst the chef world, and comes home to run this hole in the wall beef sandwich restaurant for his family. And everything kind of unravels from there. Yeah. And I love that, because even like we finished season 2 now, and without spoiling anything yet, I will say
what's interesting about it too is even like reading some recaps and things or trying to get some. I actually, during one of the episodes, I looked it up and I was just like, this gotta be like a family tree, right? Because you start getting introduced to other people. And I started looking it up and I got some explanations I didn't know. And then there's some stuff where it's like, yeah, we're never explained who that person actually is or the relation or whatever it is. And I will say aesthetically, taking a step back, looking at the first season, and again, part of it might be because if it's a comedy, I feel like people tend to write it off where I was like, oh, this is a little bit amateurish. Like there's a little bit of stuff in here that's just like, they're like good writing, good all that, but like aesthetically, it's not great. And then on second look, I'm like, oh, no. Like a lot of that was
I think it was intentional.
Choice. It was, absolutely.
It was all intentional.
Yeah.
And I felt for the first season, there is a layer of anxiety. And that's, I think, the whole point of this first season, right? So he's trying to undo all the mistakes his brother made. And you wrap up the first season with them finding all of this cash that he was supposed to deposit hidden in jars of tomato sauce.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I never understood how they got in there. In the first place.
In the second season, they kind of show it to you.
There's like a canner?
When he's downstairs. Yeah, when Richie's downstairs, the canner with the jars is behind it. So they were doing it themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that, from also the research, the first pilot episode, they actually shot in a kitchen.
Yeah.
Everything else, that exact kitchen down to the water stains on the walls, the missing tile pieces, everything was built on a soundstage.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's insane.
Like every single piece of equipment worked. It was a working kitchen. The dishwasher worked. The stoves worked. There was gas. There was water. There was heat. Literally everything worked like a kitchen.
That's nuts.
And I think that lends to the anxiety of it.
Yeah.
Nothing felt put on.
Nothing felt.
It felt shitty in the way that it should have felt shitty.
Yeah, it didn't feel. Like, and I feel like you watch a lot of shows, or even better, like when you have the flashbacks that for Carmy back to the kitchens that he learned in with Joel McHale screaming at him.
Oh my God, that scene literally, I'm not kidding. It made me like squeeze my butt cheeks together.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, like how do you have someone stand there and tell you that you're a piece of shit, you'll amount to nothing, you're nothing, you're nothing, kill yourself.
Yeah.
And then have to be like, here's your delicious dish.
Yeah.
Let's do this again in 5 minutes.
But that's the thing is like, there are parts like that where it's like, oh, this feels very artificial. I mean, even the kitchen that, cousin Staj is in that we see is like, oh, is this real? Like it's very clean. It's very.
I've looked. It's real.
Yeah. But that's the point is like, even the real is actually real, and then the fake is true to life, like down to that, to your point, like the water stains, which is crazy to me that they put that much detail into it.
I think that the whole point was we didn't know that there was going to be a Bear season 2, right? So like we'll talk about Bear season 1.
Yeah.
They didn't know that they were going to get renewed for a second season.
Yeah.
The first season on its own could have just been the first season. It could have been a limited time series.
Yep.
And you would have been like, man, that was fucking good.
Well, I said the same thing about Barry too.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I felt like if they ended it there, that would have been tied in a bow, perfect. And I will say with that, right, I almost felt worried going into the second season because, to your point, like they find all this money, right? Now, the anxiety, like from episode 1, he's sitting there and he's getting calls. He can't get.
He owes his uncle $300,000.
Yeah,
his uncle's some fucking shady motherfucker.
They're literally called the Beef, and the meat dealer comes to him and he's like, "Where's the rest of the meat?" He's like, "Oh, you owe us on the invoice. Like you're not getting any more."
And they have no beef.
And they have no beef at the Beef. And you go from that, and I think that helped the anxiety and what drove the show. And then all of a sudden at the end, it's like, unlimited money. We can do anything we want now. Yay. And that's where I was like, oh, okay. If you're tying in a bow, great. But if you're going into like, all right, now we have all this money. Now what happens? And that worried me a lot for season 2. But I will say, I was worried in the beginning too. Like first 2 episodes
of season 2?
I'm like, oh, this is just going to be a fantasy of like, of someone who worked in a place like the Beef being like, what could I do with all the money in the world? And like they're sending people to culinary school, things that are just like, all right, like would they really be doing that? Like, like would they really just be like tossing money to the wind? And then they try to like do this anxiety thing where it's like, oh no, where's the money going to come from? We have all this stuff to do. It's like, yeah, even I'm adding it up and I'm like, you guys have the money. You can make this work if you really wanted to. Maybe send one person to culinary school instead of two and you'll be good. And then by the time everything rolls back, that wasn't the point of season 2.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised by that, to the point where, like, I mean, the show brought me to tears. I cried. I literally cried.
Same.
And
for many reasons.
And we'll get into it, but I will say the main 3 characters, and every character I think has their own arc, but between Carmi, what's her actual Sydney? I don't know. Her character's name is easier to say for me than her actual name. Sydney, Carmi, and Richie. Their individual storylines are just perfect. For
Tina's brought me to tears.
I was going to say Tina. Well, Tina's I felt like was a 2-season arc. Where,
yes, absolutely.
Where this, like, her plane landed and maybe her plane's in the air now and she's going great. Like, I think watching her succeed, but like I feel like her success is a great contrast to I was just reading his name too.
Ibrahim?
Yes, exactly.
But Ibrahim, it's so interesting you say that, because I was thinking about this today, like how to say it, I guess eloquently, which nothing that comes out of my mouth is eloquent, but
yeah.
I loved the Tina embraced this new, right?
Yeah.
Like Tina, who was so against it, came up with the name Jeff instead of Chef. And, was so against it, eventually found her place in life. And it was just a really beautiful showing of how 2 people, Ibrahim did not want that. Like, he's happy where he is. He's happy what his life has become, and was like, I get it, but I don't want to go to culinary school. I don't want to learn this stuff. Like, that is not a goal for me. And the fact that they brought it back and let him run the drive-up window selling the old trusty beef sandwiches is like accepting the fact that, like, you have 2 different types of people here and embracing that they're 2 different types of people.
Yeah.
And I will say the Safe Serve certification, that alone gave me such anxiety as a restaurant manager. I can't tell you how many times I would be with the guys on my line and being like, dude, I'm going to log in on my phone. Yeah. Okay. And just like every 20 minutes, just hit next video. Yeah. Okay. Like, you can just do this in a shift, but I swear to God, you have to do it, because, like, our regional venture partners calling the restaurant, like, you have 3 guys who are not served. And like, that was the bane of my fucking existence as a manager. My boss would call me and be like, you've got so-and-so working today. Make sure they do this search. I'm like, they're not going to do it. They're going to fucking make me do it. I can't tell you the amount of times. Yeah. And I loved my guys. Yeah. My line guys were the best. They'd be like, Amanda, please do it for me. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it for you. I love you so much. Anything you want.
Honestly, out of the entire show, out of the entire second season especially, the most artificial, fake feeling thing to me was him watching the Safe Serve video, being like, oh, that's good. Like, being engaged with the Safe Serve instructional videos, being like, that's never happened in the history of anyone watching one of those videos.
I will say, though, I love arguing with my fiance sometimes, because he's like, no, you can't do this. I'm like, Henry, I'm telling you, do you know how many fucking times once a year for 17 years I had to watch these videos? I know exactly how chicken is supposed to be sorted. I know. But
wait, all right. I feel like we're
tangenting. Yes, we're doing it.
All right, to take a step back. So season 1, I think the arc is the restaurant, and it's Carmi, and then everyone else are pretty much like supporting characters around Carmi's arc. Is that fair?
It is, but also, okay, so not to get meta on this, I kind of felt like season 1 was, in a lot of bigger cities, and seeing as we live in New York, we see it a lot, is there is a group of people that are just kind of forgotten about by the rest of the city, right? Yeah. And they're happy to be in that area of life where it's like, we're just getting by, we're barely paying our bills, we're barely existing.
Yeah.
But we are the behind the scenes of everything that everyone else enjoys and gets to enjoy and love, and they don't get to enjoy and love it.
Yeah.
And the beef was kind of like that. These are a bunch of people who have found themselves in downtown Chicago, who are doing the best they can, but like the fact that this place doesn't require a lot of energy. Mikey is a really laid back boss. Like he's, you know, like his lore just kind of hangs over that first season. Yeah. And when they all kind of agree that they want to be better, it's like a really nice show of like, okay, there is a second chance for people.
Yeah.
You know, like I guarantee there's a line guy watching that or a dishwasher watching that being like, fuck, I could learn the line, or, you know, I could work in a better restaurant.
Yeah.
And so it felt like while the restaurant was getting a facelift and that was their arc, it was also kind of the story of like these big cities with these poor people, literally poor people.
Yeah.
Who are getting a second chance at like a better life or a life that has more mening for them. Yeah. It gave them meaning and purpose. Well, purpose as the second season.
Yeah. Well, I think I was going to say, and I'll get there, but I think if you had to like put like a tag on the second season, I'd call it Overcoming Fear. And I'll get back there. But I will say, like, I think to me, and I had to pull up when it actually came out because, you know, everyone knows Anthony Bourdain from No Reservations and his travel shows. Prior to that, obviously he was a chef, but he talked about it in a book, right? And that was like what got him famous. Yes. And he put this book out. Did you ever read it? Kitchen Confidential?
Yes, we are a massive Anthony Bourdain family. Yeah. Like we have every book.
Okay. But you read the first
t-shirt,
book, though?
Yes.
Okay. And so I think out of that, right, which by the way, very not very well known, and actually, wow, this funny enough connects the dots. That spurred into a TV show that didn't do very well and got canceled, starring as the main character, a fictionalized version of Anthony Bourdain, was Bradley Cooper, who we just talked about in Wet Hot American Summer. But I think the concepts of food in pop culture, you had, Julia, I almost said Julia Stiles.
That's Save the Last Dance, okay?
Yeah. Who am I thinking of? Julia
Childs?
Childs, yeah, Julia Childs. And because I'm trying to go back to the 90s.
Didn't she end up being like a war spy?
Was she?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Julia came out that Julia Child was like a spy in the wars.
Oh, geez. Okay, I gotta look that up. No, I think she was a part of the war effort
in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
I'm not saying in a bad way. She was on her side, but she was a spy.
But there's a culture that I think Anthony Bourdain revealed to the world in his book, and then subsequent pop culture things he did, of these guys who like super stressed out, working 18-hour days, chain smoking out the back door. But what you're not seeing the other side. That's the back. That's the back of the house. The front of the house, these beautiful plates, like well manicured, like so much effort and thought put into it, and that contrast of not getting paid very well, stressed beyond your threshold, and going through life like that is so mind-boggling to a lot of people. But I think, and especially like I come from a creative industry, we both do now, but from a creative industry, and like you obviously worked in both, right? It takes a certain mentality to be like, yeah, I know I'm not getting paid well for this. I know I'm not being the low respect. I'm just being pushed to the ends of my limits, but I'm doing it because I love doing this. And that's a hard pill for people to swallow, even in my life. Yeah. But I think, and we'll get there because I want to talk about that in its own little silo. But I think Forks, in the second season, very clearly, if you can't tell, my favorite episode, and unironically or ironically, however you want to say it, the episode that the Needle Drop that NSYNC did on their podcast, they talked about. But I think that episode, which brought me to tears, touches on that. I think it encapsulates. I can't say the word. Encapsulates? Am I saying it right? Okay, I thought I was saying it wrong. It sounded good to me. I think that episode sort of nails that's what it is. That's what it is about this industry. That's why, and then to your point before of you talk to other people that worked in restaurants and the service industry, and it's like you guys were all in oh yeah, I was stationed over here. Where were you stationed? It's like you went through war together. Yeah, and it's kind of not to get sappy, but after watching it, my fiance and I used to argue excessively about me still working in the restaurant industry, and I was I don't want to say goody two shoes in high school, but I did the whole advanced schooling and all that kind of stuff. And so people expected more from me. Yeah.
that when they found out that I was still bartending and working at a restaurant, they were like, really? Weren't you going to go to law school?
Yeah.
Weren't you going to do this? Really? You're still, and people looked down on me for it, like insanely. Yeah. And he and I used to argue, not because he knew that I loved it.
Yeah.
But he just didn't, he's like, I don't get it. Like, you could be doing so much more. Like, why are you so happy here?
Yeah.
And watching that show was the first time that I think he got to see, like, those nights that I was walking in the door at 1 a.m. and I left the house at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm exhausted. And then to him, he's like, you're like, what, you making cocktails all day?
Yeah.
Like you're exhausted, really?
Yeah.
He kind of got to see like a little glimpse of, and I used to always say, like, I just want you to fucking come to work with me for one day to see what I go through. It's like you're putting out a fire every 10 seconds and you do it just so for 5 minutes you can make one person's day.
Yeah.
And you see that, like, I will never forget, especially as a manager, we used to have people all the time because we were by hotels that would come in because something happened to their home.
Yeah.
And we're by a hospital.
Yeah.
It's the birth of their first child, or we're, you know, they just lost somebody and they're here for a funeral. Being able to take care of them, and for 1 second being able to take away a little bit of stress, and just like that, I lived for that feeling.
Yeah.
Like that is what got me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And I do not have that in my current job, but other than this is the happiness for me. But there is a lot of people out there, I think, for the first time being like, oh, now it's cool that you work in a restaurant. Really?
Yeah.
Now it is?
Well, it was the same thing. Like years ago, I was like, you know, I wasn't fully in, but I was like sort of involved in like the marketing industry around the time like Mad Men came out.
Oh yeah.
And suddenly it was like, like, it's like, no, dude, like they're depicting the 60s. Like it's not like,
the same
it's not like
anymore.
that anymore. And I think, every once in a while, I mean, it's funny because if the outcome for The Bear and its stress-inducing episodes about working in a kitchen and screaming and yelling and people, you know, walking out the back door and throwing up or doing meth or whatever it might be to cope, if the outcome to that is like, oh man, I want to work in a restaurant. Like,
good for you. That's great.
More for, I mean, I will say too, you know, if you remember back, like during like the economic downturn, I have to specify which one now. Back in like 08, 09.
Yes.
I was, I made a, depending on how you look at it, I made a good or a bad choice, but my company is like, hey, we're going to relocate you or we can offer you severance. It's your choice. And I was like, oh, I'll take the severance. I'll leave voluntarily. And so I did. And then that was around where unemployment was super high. And then that's when we got, I was a 99 weeker. Like I was on unemployment for 99 weeks, which was the extended. And in the middle of that and that stress, and I developed anxiety and depression, I ordered the Culinary Institute, the CIA textbook for like what I couldn't afford to go to the school, and I wasn't going to like dive into like a new career at that point, but because I couldn't afford to be clear. But I was so interested, and I bought the textbook, and I'm like, I'm just going to study this. I'm going to like go through it and cook things and learn about things. And I still have that textbook today. And it's like this giant like encyclopedia looking thing. Yeah. And it's what the students at CIA learn how to cook. They go to class and people teach them, but it's like, you know, I was like, oh, I want to learn how to do that. I remember making like bourbon cream and then messing something up. And I'm like, oh, it's almost like an ice cream. And I froze it and it became like bourbon ice cream, which by the way, now in hindsight, you would love. I got to figure out if I can make that now.
Fantastic.
It was like it was really, really strong.
Bourbon cream pays my bills right now.
I like mixed bullet bourbon into like a custard and turned it into an ice cream.
Which sounds very easy, folks, but alcohol and pHs of dairy, it's very hard. It's a very finicky thing.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, I did a good job. Apparently, I broke the laws of physics, but I somehow made it work. And my brother-in-law, who was like, you know, he's over 21 now, was like, oh, this ice cream is delicious, and like finished the whole thing.
You're like, that's because you're hammered, sir. But there's a I kind of want to say the lore of Michael, who's the brother who dies by suicide in this episode in the first season. I mean, his ghost kind of lives on in the beef. And so when you get to season 2, and something I really noticed to talk about character development, something I noticed with Sydney is Sydney and Carmi are kind of like the Ted and Rebecca relationship where everybody's like, will they, won't they?
They don't.
They can't because their platonic friendship is like there's only 2 people on the face of the planet that can connect the way that they two do. And I get that very much with Carmi and Sydney. And I also realized today she is the only person in this story who came after the death of his brother.
I didn't think
so
about that,
she
yeah.
knows him as him, not his chaotic, crazy fucking family, not all the drama of his brother, and she still accepts it, you know, she still knows that like his spirit is alive and well in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think she fights against it. Like, what? Okay, I get it. He's dead, but like, can we move on? Like, can we move the fuck on?
Yeah.
And so there's, you know, like a little pull there for her, but I feel like he connects to her so much because he can be vulnerable with her.
Well, I was going to say
he can be not the kid, the baby of the family, not the brother of Mikey. He is Carmine, the world-renowned Michelin chef who she's now seen at the bottom of his barrel.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask too, from your perspective, because I think you're right. But does she represent? Because, and we don't. I think what we haven't learned yet, unless you tell me I missed something, was what drove him to go like do that. What drove him to seek culinary as an outlet? And
I think his mom, because she was the only one. He was the only child allowed in the kitchen to help in that Seven Fishes episode. The only kid allowed in the kitchen to help cook. She was, you know, so I think.
But he was already a chef at that point, right? Because they're
yes,
like, oh,
yes.
yeah. Okay.
But I think we kind of see that he was by mom's side.
Okay.
In the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's her baby.
Gotcha.
She, you know, I'm going to teach him all the things. Mikey's kind of doing his own thing. He's a little bit of a fuck up.
Sugar.
Poor Sugar.
Oh my God.
I can't, like we do have to talk about that, but I think that he was the one that she poured all the time and effort when it came into recipes. Like Michael's, you know, like the Bashol episode where he's like, you know, rolling it out. And it's like kind of our first flashback in the first episode or the first season. You see that he does have really good cooking skills, but he's also an addict who loves to perform and tell stories and be the center of attention. And I can relate to that.
Yeah.
But I think you kind of see that. And then you see, to jump ahead a little bit, Sarah Paulson, who I believe is a cousin.
Yeah, I was trying.
I think she's his cousin. Yeah. And she tells him, come to New York.
Yeah.
I've got friends. You need to get the fuck out of here.
Well,
and
was it her restaurant?
I think so.
Okay, yeah.
Because that to me was like a little glimpse of like, I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So I think he's come back from France or from Copenhagen, and he's come back, and he came back for the holidays, and that was his first foray into like, we're gonna get you in this scene, and there was so much to unpack in the second season.
Yeah.
But not to wrap up the first season, but you kind of put to bed Mikey in the first season, right? Like the whole let it, I love you, let it rip, dude, when he finds that note and you know, the suicide note, and it's really beautiful. And there's, I think, a part of me, and maybe tell me if I'm wrong here, that feels like Mikey knew that he was in way over his head, and the only way to save the restaurant and do anything with his brother was to eliminate himself from the equation, because he was bringing everything and everyone around him down. And him dying was like, this is the only thing I can give to you guys right now. And unfortunately, people, when they're in that dark state, you know, they think that way, you know, and, you know, as someone who's dealt with that and dealt with it in my family, that's truly what people think. It's easier for me if I'm not here. Yeah. Easier for you, I mean, if I'm not here.
And I was going to say, I mean, you know, he's not at that point, but I feel like what we get, and well, we have to go into him in a second, but like, I think what we get out of Richie in the second season is a glimpse of what Mikey kind of dealt with too.
Agreed. Yeah.
But to go back for a second, what I was going to ask you too is there, I feel like the reason, or maybe a part of why Carmi and Sydney connect so well, is because she represents the part of his life. Like, she represents culinary arts and the world that he went into and what he fell in love with and tried to escape his family and the chaos. And then obviously everybody else, you know, and now in season 2, it's sort of like the mixing of those two, you know, part A, part B. And, you know, you have all these people that, going back to like the pilot episode of the first season, you know, Tina's a chef now, you know, like she went to culinary school, and he, to steal from Richie a little bit, everyone drank the Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah,
they're all
sure
in it. And And I think that's part of it too, is like she represents, 100% of this side of his life. Richie and them represent the other 100% of the other side of his life. And now everything's sort of mixing together. And almost to a point, I think from my perspective, again, jumping ahead a little bit, but like the way this season 2 closes out is phenomenal to me, because we get sort of the best of both. Well, it's not best of both worlds, but like we see all these people that were fearful or resisting change and like lean into it and feel accomplished and they're in it. And then the one person who feels not accomplished, who feels like steps backwards, is Carmi.
Yeah.
And even to a point, Sydney too, right?
Sydney, we learned in the first season, she's not got her shit together.
No.
She had an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
She hit rock fucking bottom. And that's why she came looking for a job.
Yeah.
In an Italian beef sausage.
Yeah.
A fucking little pop-up that's legendary. Don't get me wrong. It's like known as like a legendary situation. But I mean, I think we would be remiss without talking about the episode in season 1 before we wrap up season 1.
Yeah, because that was amazing. I mean, technically,
I had to pause it.
We mentioned it I think we briefly mentioned it in our Emmy nomination special.
Now that I've watched The Bear and finished season 2, let me just point out, I had not finished season 2 by the time we were watching, or we were doing the Emmy episode. And I was like, oh, so-and-so is a guest on The Bear? They were barely there.
Yeah.
Watching season 2, I totally get it now.
Yeah.
A lot of those nominations for, guest appearances and stuff.
Yeah.
I get it.
But just to be clear, season 2 premiered June 23rd, so it missed the Emmy cutoff.
I know, but if you tell me John Bernthal's nominated after his season 2 performance, I'm in.
Yeah. And I'll go back to my whole like thinking how everyone votes is like, they're voting for him for season 2 as well, even though they're not supposed to be.
Exactly.
They're taking that under, and we got to go into the guest appearances too. There's so much we have to still talk about. Do you want to just jump into season 2?
Let's talk about the episode first.
Well, there's 2.
Well, the episode from season 1.
Okay. Oh yeah, sorry.
That one single shot for 18 minutes where Sydney gets online ordering up and forgets to turn off pre-ordering, and the ticket machine is exploding.
Yes.
Marcus is in the back. He's supposed to be handling his chocolate cakes. He gets distracted by making donuts.
Yes.
He's not made the chocolate cakes. Now they've got 65 slices of chocolate cake come in. He hasn't even had it baked.
Yeah.
The machine does not shut off. And a million reasons, everyone will tell you it was shot in that way so that there was so much fucking anxiety. You got to see the chaos.
Yeah.
But that is the episode if you are in the restaurant industry. I have had that happen to me, that exact situation.
Yes.
We partnered with DoorDash. We turned on online ordering. We were not staffed for it. The fucking orders kept coming out. It was one of the worst days of my life. I cried in the walk-in. I screamed in the walk-in. I punched walls in the walk-in. I came out with a smile on my face. It's like, we've got this, guys.
Yeah.
We can do this. And my line guys were looking at me like, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And I was the manager in the morning, and I had to get my bartending shift covered at nighttime, which I needed to make cash so that I could work the line with these guys, because we were going down, running out of food. Everything bad that could have happened. So watching that episode, if you are in the restaurant industry, it was so beautifully done. But even I remember you said that like that episode was too fucking much. It was too much.
Yeah, it's called review, and that's and first off, and that's the other thing too, is like I think for any of these kind of like special episodes where they try something different. We talked about Connor's wedding for Succession.
Yes.
Where and I don't think they used to do this before, right? Like if you go back to, and I'm stealing a little bit of something sort of like NSYNC did or mentioned, which is the cool hip thing to do now is to do the oneers.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the new kind of like fun thing for filmmakers to do or showrunners to do. And I think the difference is previously, like when 30 Rock did live episodes, right? The episode didn't even matter, right? In the chronology of the season arc, it barely made a difference. It didn't even, you can skip that one basically. It's that one's just for fun. With Connor's wedding, you can't skip that one, right? Like, and then with this one, there's so much that happens, right? With the blow-ups and people quitting and,
it
Richie
was insane.
Right.
Richie gets stabbed in the ass.
Which, by the way, takes it like a champ.
After Sydney is calling him a piece of shit father, like telling him literally all of his worst fears about himself, and she's screaming them in his face.
Which is funny, too, because I think season 1 doesn't necessarily overly reveal the demons that Richie is fighting with internally. And then season 2, we have an entire arc essentially dedicated to him, along with other people, too. But
right. So this is a good segue to season 2.
Yeah. But,
okay.
But season 2, so I want to wait for Richie. He's like the I don't know if I've ever said this. I think I said it on this podcast. When you'd get those little ice cream cups with like chocolate / vanilla.
Yes.
Would you eat? First off, do you like chocolate or vanilla better? And then which one would you eat first?
I like vanilla better.
And which one would you eat first?
Chocolate.
Okay, exactly. Okay, same thing.
Yeah.
Save the best for last. That's how I was the same way.
And I thought the vanilla tasted better on the little wooden spoon it came with. Like the chocolate kind of made the wooden spoon bitter. So I always like to finish the vanilla because it was sweeter.
Man, I never thought that. Okay.
It made the wooden spoon taste better.
You know, it's funny. I feel like I also lied to. I mean, this is a whole different tangent, but I feel like I used to lie to myself that I like the chocolate better, so I'd eat the vanilla first, then the chocolate. But I mean, I think you're right because I would be like, oh, this isn't a bad start. It's just Okay. Anyway, to that point, let's talk about Sydney first because I think her arc and what she's dealing with.
And her father was beautiful.
First off, Robert Townsend.
Come on, folks.
We both grew up on HBO. Did you grow up watching Meteor Man?
Did not grow up watching it. No.
Okay.
But
do you know of it?
Know of it only because of TikTok. Because when season 2 came out, all of a sudden they started pulling, oh my God, Robert Townsend's incredible. And there is just something. I viewed Sydney differently this season in the scenes with him because she's being such a fucking brat to her dad.
Yeah.
And like, oh, Dad, you don't get it. Yeah. And Robert Townsend's such a sweet man. Like, no, honey, I get it. But like, I'm just asking these questions. Like,
he's a concerned dad.
You're not taking pay for 5 months and you live with me. I should probably show some concern there. But no, he's incredible. And the Sydney's mom dying and that beautiful scene on her birthday.
Yeah.
Where they tell that story and they hold hands around the candle and they blow the candle out. He was so good. He was so good.
I love, there was one episode, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was Sunday. I think it was Sunday, where the episode starts off and it's Carmi and Sydney trying to cook, and then it's like, oh, hey, let's meet up later or whatever. And then obviously Carmi goes off on his own adventure, which again, we'll talk about Carmi at the end, but with her, she's going on this like adventure around town with a lot of cameos from a lot of like famous chefs what I love about famous chefs, by the way, is like even me who's like a foodie and like watches all these like YouTube videos and things, I'm like, that person looks really familiar. I know they're a chef. I can tell they're a chef. I can tell
every chef in this thing was a chef.
Right. But
eyeglasses alone.
Yeah, and then afterwards I'm like looking it up after, and I'm
That's
like,
what we were doing.
Yeah. But like her little like running around town, I think it emphasized like, obviously she needs Carmi's both a partner, but she's someone that she seeks validation from.
Yes.
And now she's sort of like on her own and she's like set off to like go find people. No one wants to work or like whatever she can't find anyone to work. And then she, almost resorts to like, stealing people from other restaurants.
That was so fucking funny, that scene when she's like, hey, you guys like happy here? I was like, oh my God.
Poaching. And then also that like fear of like going around and being like, oh, this place closed down. This place closed down. This place closed down.
Absolutely.
And then we get that later too, she goes back to some of the like famous chefs that she talked to and their places closed down.
And their places have closed since she's that episode.
So, and without jumping too far ahead, I will say I feel like what we're going to get in season 3, because everything's too good right now. Everything's too, with the exception of Carmi, everyone's too happy. Things are firing on all cylinders. I think we're going to see things collapse. And
I think we saw the setup for it when Sugar, who I do want to touch on a bit.
Oh my God. We got to talk about her.
Whew, too close to home for me. But when she's telling Richie, we're booked solid for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Or he's telling her we're booked solid for 2 weeks. And then what? We've got some things.
Yeah.
and you go back to the beginning of the season when they're like, we need to be booked full, solid, at least for the first couple months or however they put it, for us to even break even before we can start turning a profit. And they've got 18 months from the agreement with their uncle to turn the profit. to not sell the building,
Yeah.
which I don't think he's ever going to sell the building because Sugar's about to have a baby and he would never put poor Sugar out of a job. There's a weird uncle niece situation happening there.
Well, they didn't have a father, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it too. Like the father was just, and we never hear about it. They never talk about it.
I don't think we do. And
yeah.
I will say we're going to get there and we're talking about Sydney, but her development as a person is, she really cares and she really wants that Michelin star. And yes, Carmi's already like, really, they're bullshit. Do you want it? And I get it. It's probably like telling, an actor, you really want that Oscar. Like telling Leonardo DiCaprio, like, do you really care that you don't have that? And they're like, no, it's all bullshit until you get it on your own. And then you care,
Yeah.
So she really cares. And you kind of see her growth from needing Carmi's validation.
Yeah.
But that scene, just for me, when they're under the table and he sees something wrong with the table, it's like backwards and they're under the table and they're both being very vulnerable with each other. And she's like, I need all of your attention. Like, I need you 100% of the time. And he's like, you're right, you do. I, first of all, admire her courage to be that honest. I don't think I ever could be.
Yeah.
I'm such a, no, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
You're clearly doing something else. But she, I think we're going to see a collapse from her in season 3 in a way that like it's going to sever their relationship maybe a little because it's starting to happen already.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, first and foremost, my only issue with that entire scene, by the way, is like, I'm like, it's like this weird like hook under the table. I was like, I didn't even fully buy that there was actually something wrong with the table. And he's like, I'll hold up I'm like, that's not how tables work. That's not how you screw tables together. Like, what are they even talking about? Like, isn't there someone from like the Grip or like team or something like that could be like, hey, if you want to make this more realistic, like everything food related on the show is so
got
accurate.
you to the table scene.
Right. Everything that had to do with like the way the gas line worked or the electric, I was like, everything is super, like, even like, I don't know a lot, but I'm like, I know that.
Fire suppression system, by the way. My fire suppression system went off in the middle of Easter Sunday one time.
Oh my God.
It was like a half hour. Like, I think we had just closed. So we had just gotten our asses kicked and the fire suppression system went off.
Yeah.
We had to close for like 4 days.
Yeah.
All of the shit that they're talking about came out from the ceiling all over our grills, all over our fucking lowboy that holds all the food. It was the worst moment of my life. So the obsession with fire suppression system in this season, I was like, this is too much for me.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth too, I was like, even there's that scene where like the guy comes to test it and he's like, all right, let's see how, if the balloon blows up or whatever. And I'm just like, and they're all like waiting, like, oh, is it gonna? I was like, you guys could have tested this before, right? You didn't like, he doesn't have like any special tool or anything to do this. You guys could have did it and be like, oh, cool, it works. Okay, woof. And he's going to come in and do it. And like, but obviously then you don't have the drama of, is it, or will it not, whatever.
Absolutely.
And even the reveal of like, oh, I think he was trying to burn the place down by
that
like,
whole scene, by the way, when they talk about, I'm not loving saying this out loud coming out of my mouth, but the Jewish lightning thing and how Sydney just like the acting in that scene was so good.
Yeah.
But Sydney's like, don't love that.
Yeah.
Not gonna say that. And Sugar's like, yeah, we're not gonna say that anymore.
Yeah.
And after he describes what he thinks it is, and it's so funny when I don't remember if it's Sydney or Sugar that's like, even after that description, I'm more uncomfortable with the fact that you've used that in your vernacular.
Yeah.
We're just like not gonna say that anymore.
Yeah.
And that to me, that acting in that scene was so realistic, and it was so good.
But to go back to Sydney,
we need to. We got to wrap up here.
I will say, like, because there's this thing in television and movies and stuff, right, where people can't say exactly what they're thinking because then that removes the tension and the drama of it all. And there was a lot where it's just like I'm watching, I'm like, Sydney, just say something, just say it, like just say what you're thinking, because like there's that passive aggressive, like fine, whatever, like that she kept doing a lot. And you knew it was either going to blow up or something, but it doesn't blow up. It just is like her having that heart to heart with him under the table, like I need you. But I think out of that, now we get, she said it, right? So she can't, what is she going to do? Say it again?
Yeah, for sure.
So now, and then you have, which we'll get to him, but like Carmi's breakdown at the end where, and he knows there's a choice to be made or he's not recognizing, anyway, well, I'll save that for the end. But long story short is, I think her storyline super interesting to me. It's very vulnerable. And I think even the setting of like her walking around freezing cold, just like, dreary Chicago, place to place by herself. It adds to that atmosphere of just being lonely and all by herself, and like she's sitting there
telling people she's got a partner.
Yeah.
And every chef is like,
I got screwed by my partner.
Yeah, you need to trust his partner, and he's not there.
Yeah.
And there's definitely that feeling of like, oh, she's realizing he is not pulling his weight here.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
And not treating her like a partner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that scene where she's like, why didn't you call me when they just knocked the wall down?
Yep.
And he's kind of being a dick to her, but it's like, I mean, again,
she does it back to him, though.
She does it back to him. And there is a lot of personal growth between them and between their relationship. And I think they've garnered a lot of respect for each other.
Yeah.
But I mean, to wrap Sydney in a bow, the way that she just handled her shit in that final episode, when to jump ahead, a little spoiler alert here, Carmi's locked in the walk-in.
Yeah.
He can't help anyone. The line is getting its ass kicked.
Yeah.
The meth head went outside and did some meth and never came back. So now he's fired. And between her and Richie and Sugar coming in the back to help, and like everybody coming in the back to help and making Fack run the front of house by himself, it's a really beautiful not end for Sydney, but to just see her come into her own, become the Carmi that she wanted to be.
But wait, I'm gonna dispute this a little bit.
Go ahead.
Is because I think one of the takeaways I had was she starts staring at the printer, right? And the printer's just spitting out tickets again. Call back to that episode review from the first season. And they need someone to lead. They need someone to be in charge. And she is not it.
She can't do it. Yes,
she can't do
that's
it.
Very
and so
true.
she relegates herself a little bit. Actually, well, sort of between like the back and forth between like her and Tina too, but like essentially relegates herself back to the line. And so she almost like demotes herself a little bit.
But it's comfortable there.
Right, exactly.
I do that all the time. Yeah.
And so I think that was my biggest takeaway too, of like all season we're watching her try to grow some confidence in herself. You can see her battling with her lack of confidence. She needs Carmi's attention and validation. She's not getting it. And then when it's her time to shine and things start falling apart.
And her and Marcus have that. They go at each other. But there is a moment where I'm like, okay, and something I have noticed about her, and I think they'll probably capitalize it more in the next season, is she can't do it alone. She needs people around her.
Yeah.
Where Carmi acts like he can do it alone.
Yeah.
And the only person he says he needs is to Sydney.
Yeah.
But he acts like he can do it alone. I can do every station. I can do this. I can do that. Where she has kind of realized like, oh, I can't. Like, I'm not in a position where I can. I need Richie to run Expo.
Yeah.
I need Sugar back here. I need Tina to pull these stations.
Yeah.
So that's fair. Completely agree with what you said. And I hope that we get more of that in season 3.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think if anything, the one thing I hope the showrunners and everyone learned from this was, you know, season 1 was like, it was the Carmi show and it was all these like little side characters. And then season 2, we got all these beautiful storylines and like tying together their stories and, you know, again, overcoming fear. Everyone was overcoming fear. And
agreed.
And I think that was the part that I was like, wow, this season was great. So to the showrunner and the writers, when they eventually get back around to it, I think this season was great for that.
Now, do we talk about Carmi and Richie, or do we talk about
Sugar? We gotta talk about Sugar.
We gotta talk about Sugar, but I really want to talk about the Fishes episode.
I do too.
We're running out of time. So
and I will say this, by the way, too. I'm gonna add one thing.
Okay.
And not to say who we should talk about first, but I will say, for me, I was more engulfed by Richie's storyline than I was Carmi's.
Agreed. I think that was honestly the point of this season.
You think so? Okay.
I think so, and I also think that we can talk about Claire a little bit when we talk about Carmi.
Yeah.
But what a divisive character.
Yeah.
I have seen people hate her with like every breath of their being, saying like, why did they, she's awful, blah, 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 where I felt the complete opposite. I thought she was exactly the type of person you needed in that situation.
I feel like you probably identify because she was like a bookworm nerd back in high school, and then
Well, I wasn't really a bookworm nerd in high school. Yes, I was a nerd in the sense that I was in all the advanced classes.
yeah.
But I was partying my face off on the
Okay, all right,
weekends.
fair enough.
Yeah, I had
Okay.
a boyfriend who was much older than me in a
Yeah.
band. Like, I was doing things I should not have been doing. And she, to talk about Sugar, and I think we can talk about Sugar in that Fishes episode
Yeah.
all together.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, the Fishes episode, essentially, Carmi's back home. It's a flashback.
Yeah. 5 years? I kept hearing like differing opinions on what
I don't even
year
know,
it was.
but
it says it right up front. I'm going to look it up
Okay.
while we're talking. But go
So
ahead.
Carmi's back home, and it is Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
which if you are Italian, Christmas Eve, 7 Fishes dinner. It's a big undertaking. Tom does it every
Yep.
year.
Yep.
My family, not big into it.
Yeah.
We're not seafood eaters. My mom wishes we were, but we're not. My stepfather is the pickiest eater on the face of the planet, also a very Italian man.
yeah.
So it was not a huge thing. I will say that I felt more anxiety in this episode
Yeah.
than I did in the review restaurant episode.
Okay.
And I thought I couldn't possibly feel more anxiety than I did in that episode.
Yeah.
This one hit me at a level that I'm now trying to get another therapist. I'm not even kidding you. It was so...
Did it unlock some things? Is that it?
It did, and there is just... so Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays the mom,
Yeah.
saw the show and said that when they mentioned the mom in the first season, that she needed to play that character.
Really? I didn't know that.
She loved it so much, and she said when they described that mom, she's like, I'm going to beg for this job. I need to play this character. I need to
Wow.
play the mom. And Sugar, we're going to talk about her, loves her mom with every fiber of her being, and her mom just shits on her so hard. And Sugar is so worried about her mom and keeps saying, Mom, are you all right?
Yeah.
And when she asks that question, it triggers the psychosis in her mother, who is very mentally unwell.
Yeah.
And you can see that in Sugar's personality. She is the mom. And in this
Yeah.
season, everyone's like, that scene with Richie and Fack when he's like, you called
Yeah.
mom? You're going to call mom? I'm going
Yeah.
to call mom. I'm calling mom right
Yeah.
now. Sugar is the mom, and she's taken on that mom role for everybody.
Yeah.
I identify with Sugar so hard.
Yeah.
And it's so
I love
hard for
Sugar
me
so
to
much.
watch, but her character development, and she's pregnant and she's terrified.
Yeah.
She's terrified that she's going to bring that child into a world the way she grew up.
Yeah.
And you see that in that conversation she has with Carmi when she tells him that she's pregnant, and she's like,
Yeah.
don't think I'm not excited, because I'm so excited, but I am scared. I'm
Yeah.
fucking terrified.
Yeah.
And then we see this episode and
Yeah.
we see why. And her husband, the character's name?
Josh, is it? I'm double checking.
No, it's shit.
Pete.
Pete is got, to me,
Yeah.
the most beautifully heartbreaking scene of the whole show
Oh my God.
when he
yes.
sees the mom
Yeah.
outside the restaurant. So I do want to talk about that.
Yeah.
That is what a beautiful, kind man who
Yeah.
loves her so much.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's such a...
What I love about him, I love about Pete in general, is that, well, to be clear, what I love about that arc for Pete's character, which doesn't even seem like an arc, but we just watch him get beat
Shit on.
every
day.
every interaction with her brothers
with
or
Carmi,
the
with
family,
everyone. They treat him like shit.
like garbage, and all he does is like a puppy run back to them, and then here he is, and again he is like this little soft, little doughy guy. And then he sees the mom and he tries to convince her to come in and all that. And I'll let you touch on that if you want to. But just his reaction to it of like, it finally hits this man. Nothing has made this man cry or wane away from his just goody two shoes, just happy go lucky kind of vibe. And then this just destroys him. But yeah.
That scene is heartbreaking. And I truly it hurt my heart for him, for that character. I think he did it so perfectly. And to go back to Sugar and the 7 Fishes scene, I don't know about you, but what triggered me the most is you've got Jamie Lee Curtis, who is batshit crazy, drunk off her ass, cooking this huge dinner, saying, I'm cooking all these beautiful things and they don't even care about me. They don't even love me. You can see the depression that she's dealing with is clearly hereditary, and that's where Mikey's gotten his unwell mental health. But she's drinking the wine, and she's got the raw beef from the meatballs on her hands, and she's got it all over the wine glass.
Yeah,
and she's putting it down, and there's sauce on the microwave, and she's yelling, and everybody takes turns going into the kitchen to see if they can help. And I read that in this scene, it's they said it's one of their favorite scenes they've ever shot because everybody was lined up in the hallway waiting for their time to go into the kitchen. And there's like a chaos, but you also see the way that she interacts with everyone and how the family kind of interacts. And for anyone that's a friend of me that's been to a holiday at my house, there is a chaos in my mother's kitchen. You don't go in the fucking kitchen, but also you're not helping. And then she's pissed that no one's helping her, but she doesn't want anyone in the kitchen because they fuck with shit and they ruin all of her cooking. And it's just like, it's just the weirdest pull. And, you know, there's no one on the earth that you can tell me is better than my mother, like not a single human. And so not really attributing her to Jamie Lee Curtis's character, but there is a moment where you can see her losing it. And she's like, Carmi, remind me in 2 minutes to set the timer and you've got to take this out and you've got to put the fish in and you got to, you know, the branzino's got to go in, but you got to get this. And I wanted to cook it this. And like, and everyone's trying so hard to placate her.
Yep.
And Sugar comes in and she's fine with everybody. She's like, get out of my fucking kitchen, you know, blah, blah, blah. But Sugar comes in and she's like, Mom, what can I do to help? And she's so fucking mean to that girl.
Yeah, can I just say there's a point. First off, I already admitted I had a crush on Abby Elliott on our other episode, right? Just something. But I loved her on the show in general. There was this like newfound respect I had for her as an actress in this episode because she just dawns. Again, I love when actors can do something nonverbal to like just display.
Oh, her eyes
convey something. Yes, her whole.
Oh my God.
Just her face. And her eyes just drop in like this. She's hurt and she's like being beaten emotionally and verbally, but like she's going to sit there and take it because she loves her mom. You've never seen a visual cue of I'm being abused, but I love you in a facial expression.
And oh my God, there, you know, I feel like we could have 15 episodes about the show at this point, but there's a moment in the beginning of this episode where they're all outside and Mikey and Carmi say to Sugar, just don't ask her how she's doing. You know, it fucking drives her insane. Like, don't do it, Sugar. She's like, I know. But you can't help it because she just wants to know that her mom's okay.
Yeah.
And they're sitting at the table and now some shit's gone down, right? So this is a good segue into the people that are guest starring on this episode.
Yeah.
John Mulaney.
First off, here's
Sarah Paulson, Bob Odenkirk. Like,
I was going to say, I remember reading, and I think I shared with you like a Deadline article or something of like Bob Odenkirk was going to guest in the season. I was like, oh, love Bob Odenkirk. Excited
essentially
to
his Uncle Lee, who I couldn't put it together at first, but is essentially their stepdad.
But not really. Like, not by marriage, not by any connection.
Because you can tell the kids are pissed off that he's had any relationship with the mom. They have no respect for the man.
Yeah.
And he's had enough of Mikey's shit.
Yeah.
You know, like the mom's giving him all this money to help get him out of the hole, which is probably his money. They probably, you know, he lives in the house because they're like, this is our father's fucking house. So he gets into this argument about a fork. Mikey throws a fork at him. Yeah. And there's like all the hijinks of like an Italian crazy family holiday where some people are smoking weed. It's Sarah Paulson smoking weed with Fack and the brother. And John Mulaney is just like fucking loves it. Like just like he's Sarah Paulson's husband and they live in New York City and just like absolutely loves the fact that he gets invited to this. And he does this beautiful speech at the table to try and break the tension that's created between Mikey and Bob Odenkirk.
Not to skip over it when Fack is running around trying to get people to invest in their $500.
It's incredible. And he goes, I'm going to give you $500.
Because I wish I could do a John Mulaney voice, but he's like, just because I'm happy to be involved with whatever you guys do.
Oh, God. I think he played that person perfectly. And I love in the speech, he says like, and I'm not gay. Like everyone here seems to think I am.
Which is even funnier too, because the whole episode, everyone's like sort of quietly like joking behind his back about the fact they like secretly think he's gay. And the fact that he's like, I'm very aware of what you say about me out loud. So it's like, he's in on the joke almost then. And I'm like, all right, this is, and for what it's worth, I funny enough, which is a little bit like concerning to me because it's like a love-hate in general of like, I love Bob Odenkirk, but that character very much reminded me of my father, which I do not have a good relationship with. And so like just watching that and like just this guy who Michael's being Michael and all, but like this guy decides that he's got to push his buttons and like just had enough of his crap of like telling stories, which is Michael's comfort zone of what he enjoys doing.
Yes.
And then they just get into it, and it's just, you know, two alphas digging their heels in.
And Michael's all yoked up on whatever fucking drug he's on.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a wild scene. And then...
But by the way, to be clear, what I love about that also, because again, and this might be going too far into things, but the fact that it's never explicitly, like there's no scene of Michael going off and doing something.
You just know he is.
And it's funny because growing up, I would see that and be like, that's just who he is, right? Like that's just who that person is.
I didn't know that my father was high every single day of his life until I was like 20 something years old.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like with the people who are like raged out on some kind of drugs. And it's like, and I love that juxtaposition because like comparing this to Review, where you're in the kitchen, that's a stressful environment. That's expected. This is Christmas Eve at home.
God.
And then to add to that too, but just so you know, my wife was off reading her book, which the side note, that's all your fault. But like you guys are getting into all these books. But my wife is off reading a book and I'm watching the episode and she hasn't been watching the Bear with me. And then there's the scene when the stuffed artichoke drops on the floor. I paused it and said, you have to come watch this. This is literally my family. Like this is literally Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Because
it's insane.
Beyond that too, because I think I said this to you before, is like there's like certain dishes that my family cooks for like Christmas Eve dinner or just like, you know, Sundays growing up, especially that I'm like, I've never seen depicted on television. I've never seen a stuffed artichoke. I'm sure a lot of people are like, what the hell is that? What is that thing? There's an artichoke, but what's all over it?
The breadcrumbs fall off.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so sad.
And like just that, I'm like, I've seen that happen. Like I've literally been like playing on the floor and like the stuffed artichoke hits the floor. So way too close to home. And I paused. I'm like, you gotta come watch this. And then I'm glad she did because it was like this nice isolated episode that tells you a lot about all these characters in general. And yeah, you start learning like, and again, that's what I love about the show in general is it doesn't spoon feed you like, oh, we're going to tell you that how far did it take us to learn that Richie isn't his actual cousin?
Yeah. The whole cousin thing in Chicago apparently is just maybe you live near me. Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
But also this episode, when Jamie Lee Curtis, so you've got that moment, right, where he doesn't throw the fork and Bob Odenkirk's like, throw the fucking fork.
Yeah.
I'm going to fucking rock you. And then John Mulaney does his little speech. Everything's kind of calm now. And Jamie Lee Curtis is sitting there. And then Sugar has to go and say,
Mom, are you okay?
Mom, are you okay?
And by the way, just so you know, I don't know about you. I get that because I'm like that and just with everyone around me too, where and again, I feel like, especially watching Sugar, I don't know if it's for me. I'm not ready to reflect that way yet. But I feel like I think you said it before. Sugar is looking for her mom to be like, yeah, honey, I'm fine.
So that Sugar can relax.
Right.
So she can know she's okay.
Her mom's anxiety and psychosis is getting to her. So she's asking the question not for her mom. She's asking for herself to then be like, okay, I don't have to worry about my mom now.
So
subconsciously.
Yes, I'm sobbing at this point watching this episode, okay? And I'm like so physically uncomfortable because 1,000 holidays are going through my head.
Yeah.
Where this is me at the table. And Jamie Lee Curtis loses her shit, gets up, leaves. So that you think she leaves.
Yeah.
You think she goes into another room. Mikey is now also lost his shit, throws the fork at Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
Improvised the table flip, by the way.
Really?
It was improvisation. Okay. He thought the table looked perfect and he thought like, I should just fuck this up as well.
Yeah.
And then Jamie Lee Curtis drives the car into the house, inside of the house.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just full stop.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
And what does Carmi start staring at?
Well, the fucking cannolis.
Yeah.
The cannolis are sitting there, which brings you to the dessert menu.
Yeah.
And, you know, we could touch on Marcus and stuff. I don't feel like we're going to get through everything we want to get through. But that episode to me was that episode alone was insanity. And I think they've done everything they needed to do to grab that anxiety that they found in season 1 and give it to you in season 2.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people said season 2 was boring. And
who said that?
I've heard a lot of people be like, oh, season 2 was so boring, especially a lot of comments on videos I watched and stuff. And they just didn't get it. It's a completely different type of anxiety this season.
Yeah.
And I think that should lead us into, we can touch on Carmi and his relationship with Claire.
Oh, no, we didn't. We still have to touch on Forks.
Oh, God. We're going to have to do a part 2, I think.
No, we can get through this. But
okay.
by the way, to be clear, Fishes is episode 6. Forks is episode 7.
Yes.
And then the other thing I just want to like lastly, just to wrap up Fishes is, I did notice, and this is not something like a lot of shows would just be like show you that and be like, all right, now when we do this thing, now you understand. And they don't do that because there's a scene where Carmy is explaining why he wants to recover this thing. And there was this thing with my mom, and he explains it a little bit. He explains it to Claire about, what happened and everything. And then we also there's the entire anxiety about Claire that's sort of revealed in Fishes about they're like, oh yeah, we told her about you. Like she took off the glasses,
yeah, she's hot now.
Yeah, she's hot now.
It plants the Claire seed, and you get to see why Claire means so much to Carmy.
Yeah, and then we didn't even get to even again because there's way too many people involved in it, but we didn't even get to touch on Richie in that. Well, I guess I could do it in a second, but his now ex-wife, they were married, right? Is that
they were married? Yeah.
They were married.
Yeah, Jillian
Jacobs. Yeah,
is incredible. In that
amazing.
Role.
I love her.
And that little girl that they cast as their daughter looks like she could be Jillian Jacobs' kid.
Yeah. Which to segue there now too. So I will say, again, NSYNC was doing an episode on the bear, and all I knew was that it was about the bear and it was about the needle drop of the song "Love Story" by Taylor Swift. And I forget which episode it is. It's early in the season where Richie is dropping his daughter off.
I fucking love it so much.
And he goes, I'm sorry, honey. I don't hate Taylor Swift. I just needed a break or whatever he says.
Yes.
Something like that. Which, again, learning from NSYNC was improvised.
Yeah, and he says, I love you, honey. And he's like, and I love Taylor Swift. I just needed a break.
Yeah.
Which is my brother-in-law right now because my niece has discovered Taylor Swift because of my sister.
Yeah.
Who is not her mom, her aunt.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law and sister are like hardcore music fans.
Yeah.
So it's been very hard for him to deal with it. And so now my niece, every time she's like, it's okay that daddy doesn't like Taylor Swift. Yeah. And that scene, I was like, oh, this is my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
But then he ends up getting her the Taylor Swift tickets.
Well, that was the thing. That was the thing that struck me is first off, hearing that was an improvised line.
Incredible.
Was great because had they not said that, there was no, it almost created this little thread of why that the needle drop itself, the act of trying to get his daughter tickets, which by the way, in real life, for Richie would have been extremely impossible.
Impossible.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
Impossible for me, who sat on Ticketmaster for hours.
And so just adding that in there early on, there is this little connection with his daughter and being a Taylor Swift fan. So then we flash forward to Forks, which the entire premise of that, if you're this far, I don't need to explain it, but is Richie is sent to stage at this restaurant, who, by the way, we actually don't ever know the name of that restaurant. They never actually say it out loud.
No, but I do. I did look at the name of what it was based off of, and I don't remember what it is.
Okay.
But it is based off of a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah.
And Olivia Colman, what a fucking,
I love that out of nowhere, out of left field, just turns a corner.
She was there for one day, and they didn't know that it was going to be her until they received the script, which is so fucking
even better.
Good. Yeah.
So, I love the story arc of Richie. So just to try to synopsis it, because we're running out of time, is he gets sent there by Carmy. He thinks it's not a demotion, but forcing him to
trying to get rid of him.
Yeah,
get out of the way.
Get out of our hair. We're trying to do something, which is funny to me because who did he send to the pastry chef? Marcus.
And Will Poulter has the hottest cameo of ever.
Okay, two things about that. One,
baby.
You hear it later as Carmy explains what he did when he went on the exact same trip. Right, because he's like, oh, I fed an invisible cat, right? So he sent Marcus on the exact same thing he went through. And second, and I can't take credit, I saw someone else say this, is when Will Poulter is talking about, he works at this restaurant.
Carmy.
It's Carmy.
And when Carmy talks about in season 1,
yes,
the chef that he works with that figured out the perfect consistency to have the gelée like a gummy bear.
Yeah.
It's him.
Well, he says something like that again, where he talks about how he went into this and was working with this guy, and they were competing or whatever. And from Carmy's perspective, it's very different. This guy threw the white flag in, said, we'll be friends. I want to learn from you now. But Carmy was like, that was the moment I knew how great I was. That was the moment. That's how I knew. Yeah. And I'm great because I don't have any of this other stuff in my life. I don't have love and everything else. We'll get to Carmy. But the story arc of watching Richie go through this. And I think the thing too is not just like this, like, you know, first off, the season starts off and he's in the basement and he's looking at all this the beef stuff and he admits it. And he's very, again, almost to a point of being unbelievable how these, you know, straight off the streets of Chicago guys can be like openly vulnerable to each other. He's just like, I don't know my place. I don't know who.
I have no purpose.
I have no purpose.
Yeah.
You know, for him, working in this, you know, slinging like deli beef shop, doing that, super easy. He knows that life. And I think once you watch, because I've known guys like that. I'm friends with guys like that. I've grown up with family like that. And so then to see him realize I can connect that same love to this and care and give a shit. And like, even when he's going through his own apartment and cleaning up things and
God,
caring.
I love that scene.
Yeah. To me, like that, and then when we get through this where he finally learns to accept, he drinks the Kool-Aid. He understands what it's all about. He understands this love of serving people. To go back to, I think, how we just started this episode. And then there's that moment when he's driving in the car, listening, screaming to Taylor Swift. I was crying my eyes out.
It was so beautiful. And the moment that he gets the pattern and he sees what's happening and he notices that someone mentioned the whole deep dish pizza and he watches a Michelin star chef take deep dish pizza and turn it into a surprise for them. And he gets to go deliver that surprise. Yeah. It is like, God, that is the best feeling in the entire world. Yeah. Like I can live off of that. Yeah. I've been in that situation and I can live off of that 5 minutes for a fucking year.
Well, I was gonna ask
to get
you
me
too,
through.
Because I mean, growing up and through my life, I can understand back of house, right? I can understand that. I can get that through my brain. Front of house, I can't. And albeit, I know you didn't work in like a Michelin star restaurant, but is that the drive? Like, is that
front of house is where I think I shone.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Personally, yes, yeah. And I think I loved back of house as well because you get to see the wheels of the bus. You know what I mean? You get to see literally where the sausage is made. But front of house, there is where I get it that a lot of people aren't this way, but there is an obsession, if you will, to that moment. Yeah. And it is like nothing I've ever felt in my life. Like maybe, you know, the day my fiance asked me to marry him, the days my nieces and nephew were born, that's it. Yeah. That have I felt that moment, but it is like they depicted it so well. Yeah. Because when he is dropping off that deep dish pizza and yes, people are going to talk about that for years. Like those people are going to talk about that moment for years. Yeah. But you are facilitating that minute, that surprise, that sense of hospitality, that feeling. Yeah. It is incredible. And the fact that they showed it so perfectly. I know. And Richie comes back in that kitchen and he is so fucking hyped off of that one tiny thing. And if you were to tell that to someone not in the restaurant industry, like, we had these people come in, they never had deep dish. So we went and got deep dish and we surprised them and they'd be like, wow, that's really cool.
Oh yeah. For what it's worth.
That's it.
Yeah. Watching that episode, again, it's not for him, but like, I've been like, I want to show that to my kid. I want to show that to my kid about like that finding a purpose and like caring enough about something and finding like, what is it that makes you happy? And for Richie, I think the thread is he likes making people happy. He likes entertaining. And
same, Richie.
Yeah.
Same.
And so watching those like, you know, things connect to him of I'm here to make people happy. I'm here to have them like have this amazing experience and see it through. And then to help wrap it up, like in the final episode, when we see him jump in the kitchen, he's like, hey, like, let me help. And he's confident. And I love where he's like walking around, like, I wear suits now.
Oh, that's the best line. I wear suits now. But also, he's done that moment, right? He's had his big wig moment. Yep. He puts on the chef coat again, goes back to polishing forks. Yeah. And then he has a conversation with Olivia Colman, who is the Michelin star chef. Yep. Who talks about her failure. They bond over the fact that they're both army brats. Their dads traveled. Their dads were both pieces of shit. Yeah. Abusive. And they found love for taking care of other people. Yeah. And God, it like literally made me realize like that's that episode was just
I mean, in the last episode
you're rooting
too,
for him
you're rooting
so
for
hard,
him.
and then that brings
Yeah.
us to Carmi.
Yeah.
And I will just say the scene where Carmi is in the fridge, he is just out loud. He thinks he's talking to Sydney.
Yeah.
And he's talking about why he can't be with Claire because he's fallen in love with this girl so hard. He loves her so much, but he doesn't think that he can do both.
Yeah.
And when he tells Sydney,
well, he thinks he's talking to Tina at that point.
Oh, Tina. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
And that's right,
she's
Tina.
She's out in the alley throwing up. Yeah.
But when he thinks that, when Sydney says that she wants a star, he says, you're going to have to care about everything more than you care about anything.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
He falls in love with Claire, spends time with her. Now the walk-in door is broken. He was supposed to call and get it fixed, and you kind of see him crumble. That's his moment. His rock bottom is he's in that fridge. He's losing his ever-loving shit. And Richie and him are arguing because he's just broken up with Claire.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to him, it's not Tina on the other side of the door. It's Claire who went back to see him.
Yeah.
And he's saying why he can't be with her.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm sorry you feel that way. She walks out crying.
Yeah.
Richie walks in.
Which, but I love how protective of Claire
Richie
is. He's like, what did you say to that poor
sweet girl?
Yeah.
And the actor that plays Richie actually says he wasn't sure how he was going to do that scene. He didn't know if he could get there, but the actress that plays Claire walked out and he said he just looked at her face and her heartbreak. She did it so well that he was able to then act that scene.
Get from that.
And your respect for Richie in that moment, and he's calling Carmi Donna, which is his mother's name, because he's losing his fucking mind.
I didn't get that. Oh
my
God.
When he's like, okay, Donna.
Yeah.
That's the mom's name.
Yeah.
Because now he's losing.
having a breakdown.
Carmi's having a breakdown, a Michael level breakdown.
Yeah.
And so the mental health thing has snapped, and Richie's poking, literally poking the bear, and he gets him to snap. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm very interested to see how Carmi comes back from that, because you do see Carmi crumble in there. He's sitting in there, and when he says, I hope you fucking freeze to death.
Yeah.
Everyone has just gone on with their shift and kind of been like, let him be in there. And you hear him losing it, and you hear people on the line, they're like, Jesus Christ, dude, chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, and this is so true to restaurants, the front of house, beautiful. Everybody's having the time of their lives. They're delivering the chocolate covered banana to the uncle he now sees in that moment, I get what you're trying to fucking do here.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing. I see that level of hospitality.
That was Richie's, again, the deep dish pizza thing was he did at someone else's restaurant.
Yes.
And you know where it came from, right? Because we get the
snippet.
Right. And so he was around for that conversation.
Yeah.
And so to see it come full circle where Richie gets to execute what he learned.
And the uncle's tearing up.
Yeah.
He's so emotionally moved by it. And he gets it. And I know we should know the uncle's name.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, what's really funny to me is every episode he popped up in, that's Oliver Platt, by the way, which is Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy. Also, which is even funnier too. Everyone has simpler names, Carmen is Carmi, Richard is Richie. And then Jimmy is Cicero, which I don't understand. I'm like,
I don't know.
Anyway, but what I was going to say about him too is he knocks it out of the park. He has been in more than half of the episodes, I would assume.
Yes.
Because of SAG-AFTRA requirements and what his pay rates and everything would have been. That's probably why he stayed on as just a guest star for all these recurring appearances. But I mean, season 3, find the money, pay Oliver Platt, get him on as a full-time.
He did great. He's so
great.
good this season.
And the one thing I didn't get, and I don't know if it is the beef or it's something else, but there's the point in Fishes where Richie is begging him for a job. He's just let me learn, let me teach me, whatever.
No, that's KPL. Remember when season 1, Carmi sees the piece of paper and Mikey's written KB or KBL.
Okay.
And he's in season 2, you hear Carmi ask him, what the fuck's KBL? K is his last name. B is Berzado. L is for Lee, the Uncle Lee.
Okay.
The 3 of them. And I think that is not legal money.
Oh,
what Richie is asking to be brought into is that mafia mob situation.
Okay.
I can do it, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And so I think that he's asking to be let into that side of things.
Got it.
Let me be the, because we know he's loaded from the first season.
Yeah.
When they fucking accidentally crush up Vicodin into the kids' lemonade and they all take a nap. And he's like, I fucking like it. Nicely done. You know, it's so funny.
Yeah.
But to wrap up Richie and Carmi in this side of it, that chaos going on in the back, like absolute shit show.
Yeah.
And instead of someone being obsessed with getting Carmi out of there, and this is almost a testament to how well he's gotten everyone to this point.
Yeah.
They're like, at the expense of you, we need to deliver this great service.
Right. You don't come first.
Sorry, you don't come first
service
anymore.
Comes first. Yeah.
And I think Carmi knows that, but also he thinks that the reason that he's locked in that fridge is because of Claire. Instead of him admitting the fact that like he has to learn to do both. You can do both.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Yeah.
But no one else in the show is doing both. Nobody has a significant other.
Yeah.
Not a single person.
Yeah, as I was going to say,
They've all given up that aspect of their life to make this 100%. And he's like, why the fuck did I think I could do that?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I feel like it was almost too good to be true, that first episode.
Yeah.
I think the third season, they're going to get a star and maybe lose it.
Yeah.
Like right away. They're going to get comfortable with the star and then things are going to fall apart and they're going to lose that star because Carmi keeps saying, I never got a star. I just retained it. I never got the star. I retained it. So I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. Do you have a guess?
I don't think it's going to work.
Okay.
And I think they're going to, I think things are going to fall apart before they come back together again. I think it has to because, I think to the point of all the other restaurants we saw close and stuff. And you said like, Uncle Jimmy, he gets it at the end, right? But all of that said, there's a lot of great restaurants. They're all closing down. Like the environment's not there for it. And so I think what's going to happen is it's going to be like, this place is great. We can't sustain because the people aren't there. And we can't survive like that. And it's going to be a hard fall, but at the same time, there's got to be a return to something. And maybe it is a balance of, that
was a bald eagle that just flew over and made that squawking noise.
Jeez.
America. We are on the Delaware River.
But I will say, I think they're going to falter first. I think they have to. I think we'll probably see a little bit of struggle because, again, everyone is invested in it. Either emotionally, physically, monetarily, right?
Well, yeah, and then Sugar's going to have the baby, so she's not going to be there as much.
Yeah. And
I will say something that I noticed watching season 2 that now you've made me hyper aware of these things because I never paid attention before. But one thing that I will say that makes you uncomfortable and is a testament to the acting and the writing, the very long pauses.
Yeah.
Being comfortable in that silence.
Yeah.
And the long stares at each other.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. And I didn't really realize that that's what physically made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not comfortable in silence. I wish I was. I work on being a person comfortable in silence, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And I feel like that acting is what's made people like, yes, the writing's great.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But they put exactly who they needed to, where they needed to make this show work.
Yeah.
And they really pulled out some heavy fucking hitters. The only other way I can see season 3 happening is we go back in time. Now Carmi is not happening, but like to make it a little bit different than what's already happened. If they want to keep that, like each season has a different vibe. Yeah. Maybe Carmi's at culinary school, or maybe he's back in Copenhagen with. Yeah.
Well, I feel like if they follow the concept, right? If like the arc or the theme of season 2 is overcoming fear or fear in general, like, season 3 has got to be something along those lines. So you figure out some emotional thing that you have to, recover from. But I will say too, I think that the part of me that will bank on it's going to falter, the bear is not going to work, is when cousin Jimmy or Uncle Jimmy is giving him the whole speech about the Cubs. Yes. And he's essentially saying, no one remembers the guy who failed on the field because, the dude who caught the ball let the run come in. So like all the mess ups and errors from before, no one even remembered that. And then clearly Carmi doesn't get it. And you can see like he's not concentrating, he's barely paying attention. To your point about like eye contact, he's not even looking at him. He's like, do you get it? He's like, I don't know. Yeah, don't.
He's gonna tell him that story again, and yeah.
But I think out of that, it's like because that was the final episode, right? So like I think if you go into season 3 with the concept, leaving it that little tidbit of like Carmi doesn't get it. He doesn't get like the knowledge being passed to him about how to succeed and everything. And or the other half of things too could be something out of left field too, because clearly I think the way everything ended is showcasing, they don't need you.
Yeah. That's how I was feeling. Yeah.
And so I think obviously that, I think more than anything else, I think that's what was driving Carmi crazy in the fridge, is that he needed to be there to be needed. And now they don't need him. And
he's hearing them succeed without him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Because once he finds out that they're succeeding and everything's going great, he's not happy.
Yeah.
He's still not happy. So him not being there, and again, I think part of that comes from that anxiety where he thinks he saw Joel McHale.
And it's not Joel McHale. It's just some random dude. Yeah.
But like he's carrying that anxiety of like, he's trying to, just in the way that, Sydney needs his validation, he's seeking some validation to overcome the lack of validation he had from him, from the chef.
Woo.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so
I fucking loved it.
As did I. I'm glad. And it's really funny too, because a lot of people I've spoken to, they're like, oh, I couldn't get past the first few episodes. Power through it. Do what you have to. Take your time with it. But season 2, I feel like is a lot more bingeable. But even, I will say, the best episodes were like 50 minutes long. So they were closer to an hour than a half hour, but way worth it. And between Fishes and Forks, my top 2 favorite episodes easily.
Agreed.
And all totally worth it. And then yeah, it's all great. Season 2 has been great. Rare, really great second season from a show that was like, oh yeah, let's see where this goes.
A blow up in season 1. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So
all right.
Cool. Go watch it if you haven't. And if you haven't, well then we ruined everything now. So
sorry.
I mean, yeah. So hopefully you like it too.
Welcome to the podcast. It's what we do.
Cool. All right.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.